Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm gonna go over 5 PSX-style indie horror games from the recent past that maybe you missed or haven't even heard of that are absolutely amazing. Diamonds in the rough, if you will. They are all played in third person, and they can all be found on itch.io. I'll leave a link in the description for each game, because my hope is you'll be inspired to seek them out and experience them for yourself. If you do, I'm telling you, you'll be in for a real treat. Now let's get started. First up, we have Angela Knife, which was published on Halloween of 2020. It was developed by, a developer named Angela Knife, as well as Good Enough Gang. So this was a collaboration, it looks like. Anyway, this game was heavily inspired by the work of filmmaker David Lynch, who is known for Eraserhead, Blue Velvet, and Mulholland Drive, to name a few. Other influences are the avant-garde films of Maya Deren, as well as the Silent Hill franchise, specifically the character of Angela Orozco. This game really blew me away with how it was handled, with how it goes about telling its story. First of all, there's no hand-holding here. The game is somewhat obtuse, meaning it doesn't tell you what you need to do. You kind of have to figure it out for yourself. But that's easy enough if you walk around the environment and click on different objects you see. It kind of forces you to explore its world. And it may take some time, but you feel rewarded when you finally figure it out. It took me about 30 minutes or so to complete the game, but if you know what you're doing, a full playthrough is about 15 minutes. So what is the story anyway? Well, we play as Angela, and after a brief dream sequence, I believe, we begin in the bathroom of a seedy motel. We've just showered, and I think the fact that at first we're only wearing a towel, that automatically makes us feel vulnerable. It's the perfect setup for what could be considered the beginning of an old horror flick. There's no inner dialogue, our character doesn't even speak at all, and that silence, that lack of context, gives us as the player a sense of wonder and a desire to discover what's going on in the story. Eventually, we find a VHS tape that we can watch, and at this point, the player switches perspectives for a bit. Suddenly, we're no longer Angela. Now, we are a mysterious stranger filming the parking lot of the motel and its surrounding property. We're some sort of peeping Tom, a stalker, and it's obvious we are looking through the eyes of the game's antagonist. At a certain point, we'll revert back to Angela's perspective, and there are more puzzles to solve, but by this point we feel very unsettled by the knowledge that someone else nearby is watching us. I won't go into what else happens because I don't want to spoil the ending, but I will say that I found this game to be beautifully done, very haunting. It really sticks with you after you've completed it. Now, it's a demo, and although the developers have promised to further update and expand on the story, it has been a while, so I'm not sure that'll happen. But I am certain that Angela Knife is an incredible little horror experience, and I highly recommend it for those of you who are looking for old-school PSX-style third-person scares. For the second game, I present to you Into the Dark by Dark Day Afternoon. This was released in March of 2021, and it's a survival horror game heavily influenced by the original Resident Evil. This developer has created several intriguing horror games that have piqued my interest, and I will definitely be checking them out in the future, but this was my first foray into the world of Dark Day Afternoon, and boy oh boy, it is so much fun. Very scary, lots of puzzles to figure out. This game is an exercise in how to do atmosphere in a horror game. The first thing that struck me when I started playing, aside from the super cool PSX-style graphics, was the sound design. The developer made superb choices here. The ambience created from the various background noises really sets the tone, and I was immediately immersed. The plot is rather simple. We play as a thief, a burglar, and our mission is to break into an old mansion, the Quinson Villa, and rob it of its storied riches. For years, the townsfolk have whispered about the fortune that lies hidden within the mysterious manor, but little do we know, the treasure is protected by a malicious guardian who moves at incredible speed. Immediately after entering, we find ourselves trapped inside, and our new objective is to simply escape with our lives. I'll leave the story there so as not to spoil it, but I will say in order to escape, we have to search for items, solve puzzles, and all the while avoiding enemies. There are a few zombie-like creatures that roam the hallways. The developer has said they didn't want to add too many enemies. They didn't want this to become an action game. And I think that was smart. This way, we're given time to ponder the clues and figure out the solutions while enjoying the eerie atmosphere around us. This game initially took me about an hour to figure out, but again, if you know what you're doing and where to go, it'll take around 20 minutes or so. Now, I've heard the developer has since called it quits. I believe they are no longer in the game dev business, which is a shame, because this is such an amazing throwback to 90s survival horror classics. I hope they reconsider, but if not, I implore you to dust off Into the Dark and give it a go. You won't regret it. Next up, we have BioCrisis by Spinna. Not to be confused with, there's another game called BioCrisis and it's on Steam. It's a first-person shooter on rails. No. This BioCrisis, it's another game heavily influenced by early Resident Evil titles, and it's a joy to play. It was published in April of 2021, and it's got tank controls and fixed camera angles that really drive home the early 90s horror aesthetic. You have a limited inventory, another hallmark of classic survival horror games. The entire experience takes about 15 minutes to play through, give or take. And it's really cool because it actually scores you. You're graded at the end based on your time, based on how many items you found, and how much damage you took. The story begins, and we play as Mary. We've just survived a car accident. We're hurt, we're limping, and the only thing we have on us is a photograph of our daughter Sharon at the local pool. It seems we were on our way to pick her up from swimming lessons when the world ended. It's some kind of zombie apocalypse. The living dead have swarmed the city, and so now we're desperately trying to find her and will stop at nothing to ensure our little girl is safe. The action takes place at a school or a rec center, I think. The zombies can lunge at us, and so we have to evade them, but early on we find a handgun and some bullets, so at least we can defend ourselves. We can also find canned food, which acts as a med kit. There are key cards and branching paths to explore, and you're going to want to explore all of them if you want to find every item. Remember, you're getting graded at the end. There isn't much in the way of music, just the wind and your footsteps and the groans of the enemies. However, this absence of music kind of lends itself to the loneliness and isolation we feel trapped in a world gone mad. The developers did a bang-up job replicating the game mechanics we know and love from 90s survival horror classics, and we even get a boss battle at the end. Truly amazing. So, does Mary find and rescue her daughter from the clutches of the enemy? Well, you'll have to play it to find out for yourself, but definitely check it out. It's a beautifully crafted love letter to old-school horror titles, and I highly recommend it. For our fourth game, we have Endless Blue by Mr. Div, aka Matt DeVito. This was published in September of 2021 for the Haunted PS1 Summer of Shivers Game Jam. This is another tank control, fixed camera angle throwback to the horror games of yesteryear, but it's more of a sci-fi horror game. The story takes place in an underwater research facility. We play as a female protagonist named Raina. We're some sort of special agent tasked with investigating why the station has gone dark. Command has lost radio contact with the researchers, and it certainly appears that something is amiss. There's no one around. The facility seems abandoned. But is it? Endless Blue has amazing PSX-style graphics that really cater to those of us with nostalgia for 90s low-poly visuals. It's also got great music made by the developer, and the bubbly sounds of a vast underwater vista permeates the whole experience. It's perfect for a summertime playthrough. Add to this the fact that it's fully voice acted, and you've got an incredible game. I mean, it garnered lots of attention upon release. What else? There's an inventory screen. We have to find key cards. There's a unique puzzle to solve, a facility to explore. It's just all around a remarkably well-made little demo. And actually, that brings me to my one criticism. It's way too short. Just when you're getting the hang of it, and the story begins to unfold, and the mystery begins to deepen, it's over. You can complete the demo in about 15 minutes or so, depending on how quickly you can figure out what to do. But I guess the beauty of that is, it's good that it leaves you wanting more. It certainly doesn't overstay its welcome. The developer, Mr. Div, has since gone on to become a popular figure on TikTok. He makes these super cool little video shorts involving liminal spaces that you could argue are works of art in their own right. But I'd say my favorite project he's been involved with is definitely Endless Blue. It's quite a triumph in recreating the gameplay and aesthetic of 90s survival horror. Definitely check it out. Finally, I wanted to talk about Code dino-h, published in February 2021 by LCDT Studios, who, oddly enough, also developed the other BioCrisis game I briefly mentioned earlier, the on-rails shooter found on Steam. Anyway, Code dino-h has its thematic origins in the dinosaur horror of Dino Crisis from 1999, but this is more of a stealth horror game. We have no weapons, we have no way to defend ourselves, and that's because we're not military or secret agents. You see, we were part of a small team of archaeologists working at a research base in the Arctic. We discovered the frozen remains of creatures who roamed the Earth eons ago, and somehow, when they were thawed out, they returned to life and slaughtered our team. So now, we play as the sole survivor trying to escape the facility while being stalked at every turn by none other than a group of velociraptors. Terrifying stuff. While searching for some hope of escape, we come across the mangled and disemboweled bodies of our friends and colleagues. We must find certain items to get to new areas, tools to gain entry to new rooms, and so on and so forth. The game also utilizes fixed camera angles, but no inventory screen this time. Items are used automatically if you have discovered them previously. The majority of our time is spent crouching and hiding behind crates and debris so as to stay out of the creature's line of sight. We're forced to creep along from shadow to shadow, and if we are indeed spotted, the raptors will make a beeline for us. Their attacks, while deadly, are forgiving enough for us to break away and flee, but we do take damage. Our character will begin limping, slowing us down and impeding our progress. I feel the low poly graphics aren't quite as impressive as they could have been, and the music could have more zip to it. But the ideas brought forth here are solid ones, and the gameplay truly resembles that of an old stealth game from back in the day. It's a shame the developers never revisited this demo and fleshed it out more. I love the whole idea of a dinosaur stealth horror game, and I'd like to see more of this type of experience in the future. But for now, Code dino-h really scratched that itch for me, and I implore you to check it out for yourself. And there you have it. 5 obscure indie horror titles with a PSX retro style that maybe you missed or have never even heard of. What did you think? Did any of these pique your interest? I'm telling you, they're all worth your time if you're a fan of these types of games like I am. But yeah, leave a comment below and tell me your thoughts. I'm really curious what you think. But at any rate, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.